Yesterday was Easter Sunday, of course, and in that keeping, I wanted to start today on a bit of a religious note, so stay with me here. I promise this is not a sermon, but a larger point about politics and what's going on in our nation today. The one central question many non-believers and believers alike ask is, why do so many bad things happen in the world, oftentimes to good people? And the answer, if you are a Christian, is pretty simple. God gave us free will, because in the Christian worldview, he loves us, and there's no such thing as love or good without freedom, without dominion over our own lives. You can't force someone to love you or to do what you want, because if you did that, that's not loving, slavery. Is God truly a loving God if he can just force all of us to worship him? That's the question many would ask. That's the Christian worldview anyway, and that brings me to the central point of freedom in America. It's why our country was founded, in large part, to break away from the tyranny of the British government and the king and grant American citizens true freedom, the kind to do what they want with their lives, to pursue their happiness. You see, the founders were, for the most part, Christians of one persuasion or another, and they viewed freedom in that same religious light. It's the highest imperative we have as humans, to ensure freedom for one another, to respect our neighbors even when we disagree. And no, America has not been perfect by any stretch and has not always lived up to those ideals. That's more than clear with our history of slavery, but that's because humans like you and me and our leaders in Washington are flawed by our very human nature. If I can go back to religion for just a moment now, you know the golden rule, of course, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We can't even get that right many times. Christians themselves can't even follow that very simple rule too often. But we have tried to make a more perfect union throughout our American history, and each time we have, the answer to how to make things better was always more freedom, not less. We need more freedom for everyone. And that is how we should frame the news. What gives us more freedom and what gives us less freedom? That's certainly the lens I look at the news through on this program every single day. And no, not to sound too dramatic here, but that's exactly the fight we're in right now. Freedom versus tyranny. And we are seeing it everywhere you look these days. Everywhere you look, including the fight for free speech online with Elon Musk, a guy born in South Africa, looking to open up Twitter to true freedom of speech. True, unfettered freedom of speech. As you know, a lot of people not too happy about that. We'll get to that in just a second, but I want to show you a clip of Elon Musk, and it helpfully explains a good part of what freedom of speech is to him and what it isn't. It applies nicely to the theme of freedom that we're discussing today. Listen to this.
And a good sign as to whether there's free speech is someone you don't like allowed to say something you don't like. And if that is the case, then we have free speech. And it's damn annoying when someone you don't like says something you don't like. That is a sign of a healthy, functioning, free speech situation.
He is exactly right. Spot on. But a lot of the people don't like this, especially people on the left. They're scared. Like former make-believe conservative and now Washington Post columnist Max Boot, who tweeted this in response to Elon's attempt to buy Twitter here a few days ago. I am frightened by the impact on society and politics if Elon Musk acquires Twitter. He seems to believe that on social media anything goes. For democracy to survive, we need more content moderation, not less. Censorship? He's promoting censorship. He's frightened of the very thing that lets him write, to make a living, to write whatever he wants. He's afraid of what sharing the freedom of speech with the trolls, with the peasants would do to him. Why? Because freedom is messy. You might not like what you hear, like Elon Musk just said. Your ideas could possibly lose in the public square. Oh my gosh. And the people may decide to adopt a policy or a politician that's a huge mistake for the country, or somebody you terribly dislike. Or they might read drivel from people like Max Boot and reject it for being intellectually imbecilic. as it often is. But the founders knew this too. What's worse is an authoritarian regime taking control of everyone and everything. Even if they make the right decisions, one bad choice, one, can be absolutely catastrophic. And I'd say freedom, if you look around, has worked out pretty well overall for America and our friends around the world. Would you rather have lived in the Soviet Union or here in the United States of America? I can tell you which side of the Berlin Wall most Germans wanted to live on for several decades, and it wasn't the east side. You also don't see immigrants clamoring to start a new life in China and busting across their border. But you see thousands from all over the world risking life and limb to get into America, legally and illegally. Now, why do you think that is? And that's a perfect transition, by the way, to China, the socialist, communist country with a fascist economy where the government, where the Communist Party picks winners and losers. That country is currently embroiled in a COVID-19 wave that they're trying to contain in places like Shanghai. And the answer to that from the communists? Deny the little freedoms the Chinese citizens normally get. Take a look at this. It's gut-wrenching. Watch.
乖乖。
人。
拿刀捅死他！
Good Lord. I'm sure that kind of stuff is surely stopping the spread of the COVID virus, right? Right. People are actually starving in China right now. Why? Because they're not allowed to leave their homes to get food. Food they ran out of days ago, but it's all for the greater good, you see. The end justifies the means in China. And freedom, more often than not, is a hindrance to the communist plans and the socialist plans here in America. And even given all of this, our experts, our expert class, our elitists in America still find time to praise China. Honestly, praise China for their handling of COVID-19 and this outbreak. An outbreak they started themselves, which our own Tony Fauci still won't admit, at least not in public. And here's Fauci praising the Chinese. You have to see it to believe it. Watch.
How concerning is the outbreak in China? We see the lockdown in Shanghai and the State Department now ordering families out, all non-essential workers out of Shanghai.
Well, China has a number of problems, two of which are that their complete lockdown, which was their approach, a strictest lockdown that you'd never be able to implement in the United States, although that prevents the spread of infection. And remember, early on, they were saying, and I think accurately, that they were doing better than almost anybody else. But lockdown has its consequences. You use lockdowns to get people vaccinated so that when you open up, you won't have a surge of infections because you're dealing with an immunologically naive population to the virus because they've not really been exposed because of the lockdown. The problem is that the vaccines that they've been using are not nearly as effective as the vaccines that are used in the United States, the UK, EU, and other places.
Honestly, that's not particularly surprising now, is it? The answer is no. Remember, this is a guy who said that your individual rights don't matter much. When there's a pandemic, when there's a public health crisis, your rights, not so important. Now, I've said it time and time again. Our elites here in America don't like freedom, or those around the world for that much, because they believe they are better than you are. They knew better than you how to run this place. They know better how to run your life better than you do, they think. You see, freedom gives people like me and you the option to ignore them altogether, to dismiss them, to say, get out of my life. And they just can't have that. And that's why they're so afraid of Elon Musk, a triple-digit billionaire they can't cancel, even if they want to. He's worth almost $300 billion. And that's why you get leftist rags like Slate writing filth like this. If the deep state is simply bureaucrats trying to uphold decency and the rule of law, let's hope it runs very deep indeed. Rule of law? Please. That's a member of the American press, hoping that an actual deep state exists so it can control you and nullifies the will of the people. They are so terrified of freedom, they're willing to give up their own just to take yours. Think about that. They would give up their own freedom to take yours. And that, my friends, is the central issue in America today. Do we choose freedom or do we choose freedom? We have to. Do we give up a little safety and security to live our lives how we want, on our terms, or will we let the government secure both by telling us what to do and then taking whatever they want? I remind you again of the Berlin Wall. I know which side I'd want to be on. Do you?